Hey, we hope you're having a great day. I'm Tom.
I'm Holly.
And welcome to HBC's YouTube channel.
Hello and welcome to day 24 of Journey Through the Bible. Thank you so much for tuning into our video today.
So we want to give you a gentle reminder that our next mini meeting is going to go live tomorrow, Sunday at 10:30. So do tune in for that. I've heard the preacher is very good this week, so you definitely want to hear that one. But anyway, let's jump into the passage for today.
Romans 11, verses 11 to 24. Again I ask, did they stumble so as to fall beyond recovery? Not at all. Rather, because of their transgressions, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make Israel envious. But if their transgressions means riches for the world, and their loss mean riches for the Gentiles, how much greater riches will their full inclusion bring? I am talking to you Gentiles. Insomuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I take pride in my ministry in the hope that I may somehow arouse my own people to envy and save some of them. For if their rejection brought reconciliation to the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? If the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If their root is holy, so are the branches. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not consider yourself to be superior to those other branches. If you do, consider this. You do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off so that I could be grafted in. Granted, but they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant, but tremble. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Consider therefore the kindness and sternness of God, sternness to those who fell, but kindness to you, provided that you continue in his kindness. Otherwise you also will be cut off. And if they do not persist in unbelief, they will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. After all, if you were cut out of an olive tree that is wild by nature and contrary to nature were grafted into a cultivated olive tree, how much more readily will those, the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree?
In this section, Paul shows that the hardening of Israel's heart is not final, but actually they will rise once more into God's grace. He also shows that because of their downfall, the Gentiles have been greatly blessed, and so nothing is ever wasted with God. Verses 11 to 16. The idea that Jewish unbelief has led to blessing for the Gentiles is a theme found in other books of the New Testament, and Luke himself uses this argument too. It is the idea that rather than just giving up on evangelising to the Jews, the apostles took the gospel into the streets and preached it to the Gentiles, who heard it and accepted it. Paul's hope, and indeed others' belief, is that the witness of the Gentiles coming to faith will cause the Jews to become envious and seek after God's grace too. In this way we see the remnant will become the majority as Jewish people turn to Jesus. Paul says that if their unbelief caused blessing for the Gentiles, how much more will their belief cause blessings to all? The blessings that Paul refers to are not explicit, and so we cannot be sure of what the blessing will look like. But it is another reminder that God's people haven't been lost, and all their future acceptance of Christ will lead to greater blessings.
Verses 17 to 24. Paul uses this beautiful analogy of an olive tree. He talks about how some of the original branches of the olive tree have fallen by the wayside and have been cast off, but that new shoots of a wild olive tree have somehow been grafted into this original olive tree. The image is that Israel's unbelief, i.e. the fallen branches, has made room for this new strand of wild olive to become part of that tree. So the Gentiles have been grafted into the plan, and that original tree is the remnant of Israelite believers. Paul makes it clear though that they have no right to boast in this, that the Gentiles can't boast against the Jewish unbelief, because it's only through those fallen branches that the wild olive has been able to be grafted in. So it's because of Jewish unbelief that the Gentiles have been able to come to faith. And Paul reminds them that they shouldn't be trying to reject the Jewish unbelievers, because actually what he's talking about culturally in that point at Rome is that the Jewish believers were being victims of anti-Semitism because they were so forthright in what they believed, and they didn't want to compromise or assimilate with the Roman people, that they stuck out like a sore thumb. And so what Paul is safeguarding against and really encouraging the Christians to do is don't take that for granted. Don't just assume that because they don't believe in the risen Jesus that you somehow can get away with pushing them out of God's plan. They still have a purpose in God's plan, and that he's really cautioning them against anti-Semitism. Paul's final point is one of hope for the Jewish people. He says, look, if this wild olive can become a part of this olive tree, how much more easily can God pick up those branches that fall into the wayside, those Jewish unbelievers, and graft them back into his plan? And that's what he's saying. It's a message of hope that God has not forgotten his promise to that nation. He has not forgotten his promise to the Israelites, but that he has a plan, that they are a part of his plan for salvation on a bigger scale. And so all that they need to do is believe in him, and they'll be grafted back into that promise. So it's a message of real hope and joy for the Jewish people. Time for our application. Now, I found this passage really encouraging because it reminds us that God has not forgotten his people, that God has a plan and a way to graft them back into his plan for salvation. And for us, I think the application is don't give up on people that you're praying for. You know, if we see anything in this passage, is that you should pray tirelessly for people, because there is always opportunity for them to come to faith. And it might be that you've been praying for someone for years and years and years, and it seems like nothing is changing, but this passage shows us that there is always room to be grafted into God's plan. And so I think this is an encouragement to us to keep praying for those who are not yet believers, because there is always hope.
And that's day 24 of Journey Through the Bible. Remember, tomorrow 10:30, come back to the channel and see the next mini meeting. But until then, we'll see you soon. Take care.